CNN has just dropped an article where the writers counsel people who are, quote unquote, angry at the unvaccinated to begin using military level psychological operations on those who haven't been vaccinated in order to get them to do something against their will and their better judgment. When I read this article, my jaw hit the floor. I recognized some of the language immediately from my military training. A lot of guys were door kickers and special forces and infantry and snipers and all this. That's what gets all the headlines. I was an Army interrogator. My job was to extract information from people using the techniques you see on the right side of your screen. It was also my job to know how to resist being interrogated and to identify when people were attempting to extract information from me while they were pretending to be my friend. Now, we're going to go through this article, but one of the big red flags that popped up right away was the writers. Peter Bregman and Howard Jacobson. Peter Bregman wrote a book. Ready for the title here? You Can Change Other People. Now just stop for a minute and let that sink in. What kind of a sick psyche would write a book teaching people how to go out and proactively change everyone else around them? How much of a narcissist do you have to be? But let's go through this article real quick. The title is Angry at the Unvaccinated? Here's a better way. You see, what they're trying to do here is real subtle. And I'll just read what they say, and it's going to make perfect sense. Many vaccinated people are angry at those who aren't. If you've had your COVID shots, you may agree with Governor Kay Ivey of Alabama, who said recently, quote, folks supposed to have common sense, but it's time to start blaming the unvaccinated folks, not the regular folks. It's the unvaccinated folks that are letting us down. Yeah, that was Kay Ivey from Alabama. And it's not just the masses who are letting us down, pay attention here, but people close to us, our coworkers, friends, family members. You may be furious at what you see as the selfishness and ignorance and lack of civic responsibility in the people in your life who refuse to get the jab, and you're not alone. Social media is rife with posts that attempt to convince people to get vaccinated by explaining how wrong-headed they are. It's human nature. You might be doing the same kind of browbeating yourself. But here's the question. Now, here's where the psyops come in. How is that strategy working for you? After you lay into the anti-vaxxers and the vaccine hesitant, are they thanking you for setting them straight and rushing to make appointments? Our guess is that's not what's happening. Instead, those conversations get heated, things get said that can't be unsaid, and both leave you feeling angry, frustrated, and resentful. Now, what they just described there, and this is the reason I left this up on the right, is the direct approach failing. So you have to try another approach. In the moment, it can feel good to indulge our emotions and let them have it. But the cost is high. We damage the relationship and they don't get vaccinated, even when we present them with clear, seemingly convincing facts. There is a well-documented phenomenon in psychology called the backfire effect. Giving people facts, disproving their incorrect beliefs can actually reinforce those beliefs. Researchers have observed this phenomenon in context of political misconceptions, voting preferences, the decision to vaccinate one's children, whether to get a flu vaccine. The more people are confronted with quote-unquote facts at odds with their opinions, the stronger they cling to those opinions. See, the direct approach rarely works in interrogation. Rarely does, being forceful and strong and intimidating, rarely. It's almost always one of these others. So, and if arguing with quote-unquote your facts backfires, you know what backfires even more? Criticizing, blaming, and shaming them for being thoughtless, selfish, stupid, ignorant, or psychopathic. You can check this yourself. When was the last time you changed your behavior in response to someone blaming or shaming you? We want to say that we feel your pain. Now, here's where the psyops come in. We're both vaccinated. We're disappointed that the Delta variant, combined with widespread vaccine hesitancy, is prolonging the pandemic and necessitating continued mask mandates and lockdowns to control its spread. And we're mortified at the resulting unnecessary suffering and loss of life. We're angry too. Like Governor Ivey, we also feel the urge to convince them to change by giving them the facts, arguing with them, and criticizing and shaming them for selfish disregard of others. You see, this is the psychopathic idea here. These people really believe it's their job to go change the world and convince people that don't agree with them how wrong they are, and they'll use whatever technique to do it. But there's a deeper reason they're doing it. There's a deeper reason. You ready for the reason? Stockholm Syndrome. See, these people on the left that can't stand people standing up to the government, you see, they're suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. For those of you that don't know what that is, it's a term used to describe a paradoxical psychological phenomenon wherein hostages express excessive admiration or praise and positive feelings towards their captors. These appear to be irrational in light of the danger or risk endured by the victims, essentially mistaking a lack of abuse as an act of kindness. Now, here's what they're saying that should be done. The power of empathy. And here's where it goes totally off the rails, and when I almost completely lost it reading this. Their approach would be different than the direct approach. Their approach hinges on willingness to give up control, to acknowledge that the person you're trying to change, ding, 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 has autonomy and will make their own decision. See, this is another key in interrogation. You have to make them believe that they are giving you the information willingly, that they've come to the realization on their own that it was a good idea to give up the information we need. Of course, what you're giving up isn't control, it's the illusion of control. The person you're talking to is always free to get vaccinated or not. But wait, you see, that's not always going to be the case. You don't get to choose for them. That's why you're trying so hard to convince them. So when we can't persuade with facts or criticism, what can we lead with instead? Two things: empathy and curiosity. Validating needs, even if we disagree, all this other gobbledygook. You know, getting in touch with your feelings. Now, ready for this? This is going to blow your mind. They counsel you, just like they taught us in the military, to put our own emotions aside. Instead, extend your empathy to the other person. What do they care deeply about? Here's what we've heard from the vaccine-hesitant people in our lives. Quote, I don't want to put unknown chemicals in my body. I don't trust pharmaceutical companies. I don't want to be told what to do about my body. These vaccines have been rushed through without enough research, and they aren't even fully approved by the FDA. My chances of getting harmed by the vaccine are much higher than my risk of dying of COVID. Now, all valid. Now they say here, now we know that you can argue with these statements, and you might already be doing it in your head, but can you empathize with them as well? And they go through and describe how pretty much every one of these things is a good reason, especially the thing about not being fully approved by the FDA. It even says right here, does it make sense that someone would want to avoid putting unknown chemicals in their body? Is it reasonable not to fully trust the pharmaceutical industry? It doesn't take a lot of Googling to find lawsuits and settlements of billions of dollars involving harm, false claims, and withheld information by drug companies. Isn't it true that we only have short-term data on the effects and side effects of the vaccines? If only because the trials began less than 2 years ago. So literally within their argument of empathy, they have put aside all logic, meaning that anybody who would say that would not be trying to talk somebody into doing it. But they continue to try to talk people into doing it. Why? It's another technique, and it shows Stockholm Syndrome. Basically, the idea, what they're saying here is what you need to do is this. You need to find some common goal and then try to make them believe that, wouldn't it be better for all of us if you got vaccinated? I mean, we want everything to go back to normal, don't we? Well, we want to all get along, and we want to all be friends. And it would just be easier if you just acquiesced, and it would be better for everybody. We used to do this all the time with groups of guys. We'd get 1 or 2 hard heads, and we'd get 4 or 5 that would just roll over immediately. So we would get those 4 or 5 to go start to work on their buddies and say, look, until all of you guys, break and let us know what we want to know, it's going to be worse. It's going to be terrible on everybody. So we would create dissent within our detainee camp. And that's exactly, literally, this is right out of the Army Field Manual, what was being counseled in that article. It's Stockholm Syndrome. See, we made those 4 or 5 guys that broke identify with us. Gosh, we want you guys to have a better stay here. We really do. This is as hard on us as it is on you. Why don't you get those other 2 guys to just come into the fold and just realize that it's futile, and where's futility? Emotional futility, 9. It's all here. And it's literally in a CNN article that they are now saying that if you're angry at the ignorant anti-vaxxers or people who aren't getting vaccinated, just try to run psyops on them. Military level psyops. It's just unbelievable, but they reveal their own Stockholm Syndrome in the process. See, CNN is the detainer, the emotional detainer. And the people out there who are angry, trying to convince everyone to go get vaccinated, they're the ones who've broken. And they're the ones who have Stockholm Syndrome. And there are some people who don't have Stockholm Syndrome that have the ability to make really good arguments. And it even says it in the article that you should tell people that those are valid arguments. And this is the one paragraph. Once they feel like you care about their opinion, once they feel like you actually care, even though you don't, about their opinion, so you can learn from it, and then rather demolish it or them, you're in a real conversation. Now you can get to the important questions. What do they want? For themselves, for their loved ones, for their country, for the world. Chances are this is where you can find common ground. This is the level 2 manipulation. We all want people to be well, to be free from harm, to be free from coercion. We all want the economy to flourish. So just acquiesce and just do as you're told. And don't, it's okay to have those questions, but acquiesce anyway. This is right out of Interrogation 101. Bregman and Jacobson, I promise you, these guys, unlike the guys in social media, do have some very deep psychological training. Because what they were doing on social media with all the obfuscation and the censoring and redaction and kicking people off, it's very clear they had no idea. Wasicki and Dorsey and Zuckerberg, no idea about psychology. These guys are the exact opposite. These guys are psyops masters. So get this out to your friends. This is what they're trying to do now. This is their next step. Stockholm Syndrome. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. I'll leave it there. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. We will see you tonight on Twitch.